Sandra and Lisa, chatting with you about second half surges. We are 7 matches left in the NWSL season, Sandra. The playoff push is absolutely on, and this is an opportunity for teams, for players, for individuals to kick it into another gear and make a run through the playoffs and get a chance at winning the Shield and the NWSL championship. And we've seen this happen in the past. It is not outlandish to say that a team that is sitting well outside the playoff position right now can't make it into the playoffs and win the NWSL championship. And it got us thinking, historically, there have been some pretty big second half surges that have really changed the course of the second half of the regular season and the NWSL playoffs, impacting who wins the Shield and the championship. So I want to know from you, bud, second half surges, what stands out to you?
This is, again, we're coming off of a segment where we're just chatting about NWSL championships, and maybe there was some league lore that was introduced in those early championship days. But I would also argue that some of what we're talking about when it comes to second half surges is also included in that lore as well. It's become a part of like NWSL culture almost, to maybe sort of have certain teams out there claim that as part of their identity, saying, hey, we know we're a second half of the season team. We're going to make a run. I remember in earlier days of NWSL that was maybe sort of the framing, that when it came down to running a table, having that grind of a long season, maybe you block off that 4 to 6 weeks knowing that things are really going to get shaken up, that it'll come down to that particular window of games. So for me, it's not surprising that we're maybe getting introduced to that in a new way, where now there's going to be 8 teams potentially in the postseason. As long as you get one of those 7 or 8 seeds, you find yourself as a postseason team. So that's shaking up things even more. So I'm looking forward to seeing who's going to get 7 and 8, because I don't know at this point. It seems to fluctuate week in and week out now since we've been back into the second half of this season. I don't want to bring up old news, but I got to ask you how you're feeling about Angel City, Lisa, because they're coming off of a tough win.
Sandra,
tell me.
Stop.
Bake me.
You know that segment was bold and cold, and they were
very bold.
Essentially outlandish takes that were unrealistic. I have PR people, friends in the league, texting me, emailing me about it, being like, what are you talking about? Where is this coming from?
Tell them you're being bold.
And I just tell them I'm being bold. It was basically a hot take that is just bold. Whatever. I don't care. I'm still rooting for it. I just think it would be fun to see, because I don't have a like true team in the NWSL that I am a ride or die fan for. I'm just not there. Frankly, there's not a team in Philadelphia, so I'm not. And because of that, it allows me the pleasure of watching the NWSL fully unbiased, because I don't care necessarily who wins. There are teams I like watching. There are teams I don't like watching. There are underdogs that I root for, players individually that I am cheering for. It makes my job that much more fun, because I just get to go out there and watch.
Not me, Lisa. Now, I'll definitely be on an emotional roller coaster with Chicago. Like, that's me.
I know you will. I know you will. So right now in the NWSL standings, through 19 matches played, Orlando is first, Washington Spirit, Kansas City third, fourth Gotham, fifth North Carolina, sixth Portland, seventh Bay FC, and eighth Chicago. Second half of the table features Angel City in ninth, just outside the playoff line, Seattle 10th, Racing Louisville 11th, San Diego 12th, Utah 13th, and Houston 14th. When you think back historically, Sandra, about some of the second half surges that have happened in the past, which ones stand out to you?
I mean, I hate to go so recent, but Seattle Reign is massive. They had a wild 2021 season. I mean, shifts in coaching changes, Laura Harvey eventually getting back into the league post Tokyo Olympics, and then essentially just running the table and winning the Shield. It's wild to think about. But you know, we're talking about teams that we do care about, and you say that you get to watch everyone neutrally. But I gotta shout out the 2019 Chicago Red Stars as well. I think on paper, arguably the greatest Red Stars roster in their franchise history. Lots of iconic players from Julie Ertz to Sam Kerr. And while they were middle of the table, maybe outside looking in at some moments, they went on an incredible run to finish second place with 44 points and make it all the way to a championship final. So lots of
Yeah.
stuff to take a look at here.
That 2019 Chicago Red Stars season was absolutely crazy because their point total in the second half of the season, they were insane. Like points per game, right? Our researcher did this little math for us. In the first half of the season for the Red Stars in 2019, they were picking up 1.4 points per game. So that is like just barely scraping by with a tie per game. In the second half of the season, 2.25 points per game. They doubled their total of points. Yuki Nagasato had 5 goals in the second half of the season. That was Sam Kerr's season where she went off and had 18 goals in the regular season. Of course, split half and half. In 2021, Seattle ended second, right? They came just behind the Thorns, and then they bounced back the next year and win the Shield in 2022. But 2022 was a big season for North Carolina Courage. And frankly, I think we're seeing that again this year with a Courage side that can come out in the second half and make a big difference in the way that they're playing, whether it's scouting opponents who are finally clicking on the field. In 2022, after 9 matches, just through 9 matches, North Carolina Courage were in last place. They were in 12th in the standings. Then they finished 1 point short of a playoff spot in 2022. They finished in 7th. But they were doing so well in the second half of the season, and a lot of that having to do with Dabinia. In the first 9 games, she only had 3 goals. And then in the next 13 matches, Dabinia had 9 goals. She finished 3rd in the Golden Boot race with 12 goals on the season. And she had 3 of her 4 assists on the year in the second half of the season. So there was a huge shift for North Carolina to absolutely dominate. And a lot of that having to do with Dabinia and also Angel City. I mean, this is like what I was talking about at the beginning of the season.
Yeah.
Remember what they did last year in 2023?
Yeah, incredible.
Absolutely incredible. Angel City was tied for last place after 11 matches in 2023. They ended up in 5th place, making their inaugural playoffs for the club. It was all of it. I'm going to say all of it having to do with Becky Tweed, right? She came in after 11 match days and absolutely dominated. They had 3 clean sheets in the second half of the season. They conceded just 9 goals compared to conceding 21 in the first half of the season. It was really fun to watch Angel City do that. Look at that picture, Sandra.
I know. I'm looking at the roster. I'm like, look at that team. I miss June Endo so much. I
Miss
hope her
June
recovery is
Endo.
going well. Yeah.
I miss June Endo a lot. It's been fun, but it's clear to see that in NWSL, anything can happen. With 7 matches left, there is a lot to look out for. If you had to pick a team, Sandra, that is in the bottom half of the standings right now in the NWSL that could make it into the playoffs, which team would you go for?
Oh, goodness. I want to say
North Carolina. Oh, sorry.
I want to say I still believe, in I still want to have hope for Racing Louisville, but they're just not showing enough on the pitch right now. But there's still a window of time for them to try to get something done. I would argue that Seattle is maybe making that surge right now. They're undefeated in their last 5 games, 3 wins. It's hard to ignore what they're finally trying to put together.
Absolutely. I like that shout. I'm still going to stick with Angel City.
You should do
Let's
it.
go.
That's right. Stay bold, baby.
Playoff line.
Stay bold.
Bold. Stay bold.